Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Caitlin Snyder, and I have the pleasure of serving as NHNRA's Managing Director. I'm really excited about today's topic, from hidden costs to significant savings, solving affordable housing's water challenge. And I'm really proud of the partnership with today's webinar sponsor, Ion Water. They've really taken a deep dive into the affordable housing waters, working with industry partners to understand the pain points and find scalable solutions. Water is both a challenge and an opportunity for us, and they're making waves by turning the tide towards innovation. Get ready for a lot of puns on water. And to answer just a few questions off the bat, yes, this webinar is being recorded, and yes, a copy of the recording and the slides will be sent to everyone who registered. Please submit your questions today through the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We're going to be taking questions both throughout the webinar and at the end. And here to moderate the discussion is Eric Homburger. He is the Chief Commercial Officer with Ion Water. Before joining Ion, Eric spent time at industry-leading organizations such as Honeywell and General Electric. Also joining the discussion, go over to our panel slide. We've got Orlando Valdez. He is the VP of Business Development with Ion Water. Sean Beisman. He is the underwriting manager with Pivotal Housing Partners, and Chris McKenzie, the VP of Senior Relationship Manager at KeyBank. So at that, I will hand it over to you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, for the kind introduction, kind words, and I love the water pun. So starting us off on the right track there with diving deep and making waves. So
Got
very
to
good.
start strong.
Absolutely. So, but as Caitlin mentioned, I'm Eric Hamburger. I'm our Chief Commercial Officer here at Ion Water. And that means I get to the privilege of leading our sales, marketing, and product functions for Ion Water. And thanks again, Caitlin, and thank you to NHNRA for the opportunity here to share the Ion story and maybe more importantly, the state of water as it exists in the situation in affordable housing. Uh, Over the course of the hour here today, you'll get the opportunity to hear the unique and I think very impactful perspective of a few of our partners across the panel and the discussion. And I think what that perspective and what I hope it'll be here over the course of the next hour is that water really has been a secondary topic within affordable housing, multifamily, and just across how we all view the commodity. But that has changed, and it has really become now a primary focus for these organizations. And you'll hear their perspective on how it's really impacting them and how it's impacting in a significant way the bottom line and the NOI that they're able to capture as a result when they manage it and have total control of their water. Before we get to the panel discussion and get into those, I'd like to spend a brief minute just introducing Ion. I see from the registration a number of our partners and customers around, so it's always good to see them. But in case you're not familiar with Ion, I wanted to spend just a minute introducing Ion, and then I'll hand it to my colleague Orlando Valdez to give a little bit about the state of the water situation as it exists today, and then we'll get into our panel. So let me just advance here to the next slide. There we go. So who is Ion Water? We at Ion operate the only end-to-end water management solution built for affordable housing. So what does that mean? You see these boxes across the middle. And really when we say end-to-end, that means we start with the leading technology, the highest precision meter technology that exists that we install within a specific unit in affordable housing. We then, very importantly, take that raw data that we're collecting, that very high precision information, and what we call ion control. We're turning that into intelligence. So we're turning that data into usable, actionable intelligence that we display back to you in our smart water management platform. And then, very importantly, we not only stop there and we don't stop there and just provide you the intelligence, but we're then going all the way to Ion Assist, where we are holding your hand, we're partnering with you in your workflow. So, whether that means work orders that are showing up directly to your on-site staff, whether that means partnership calls with your asset management group, whether that means getting the actionable intelligence to you in the way that is most impactful, so that you have total visibility of your water and then total control over your situation so that you can reduce your consumption. That happens through identifying in that middle section of that intelligence the fixtures that are in disrepair that are causing what we call invisible water loss to occur and overconsumption. that we can cut out. So I know my colleague here, Orlando, will talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but you see some of the partners that we have across the bottom of the page here. I won't dive into detail. I think some of them are on the call with us here today, but really at this stage, Ion operating all across the country, installs in almost every state now, and with some of the leading and largest organizations in affordable housing. So enough about Ion and our technology and background. Maybe more interesting for the group on the call today. Orlando, let me turn it to you. Orlando is our business development director, and with that, that means he has the pleasure of not only getting out there with our partners and customers, but also being in the marketplace with the state housing finance agencies and the utilities, the municipalities that are out there. And I know you get to see a wide range of what's happening in water. And Orlando, do you mind just sharing a little bit more with the group here before we dive into the panel about, maybe some of the things that will surprise folks about what's happening in water today?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. The issue that we're addressing at Ion is the waste of water, right? So unconscious consumption that is significant, right? And it's something that there needs to be awareness around in the industry. Today in affordable housing, over half of the water that is consumed and paid for, right, at our affordable communities all across the country is being wasted. And the scale of that waste is, approximately 400 billion gallons of water that is being lost, right, every year, unconsciously consumed and paid for, you can say. And the associated expense of that wasted water is approximately $6 billion a year. So if you think about that, that's $6 billion a year that's being diverted away from our affordable communities every year. And it is associated with down drain leaks right inside of the units that the site teams, residents, right, have no optics or awareness to, right? So this isn't water that's pouring, onto the floors or leaking under the buildings. These are fixtures that are in disrepair, right? Leaking toilets, mixing valves, water heaters that are going unidentified, right, and draining resources from these affordable communities. So if you think about that number, right, $6 billion today, that is anticipated to be in excess of, $8 to $10 million or $1 billion of waste over the next 10 years, right? And the reason for that is that water rates in the U.S. today, on average, are increasing 2.5 times faster than inflation, right? And this has been something that's been happening, for well over, 10 years, closer to 20 in the industry. And the cause of that waste is really twofold. So one, our water systems across the U.S., the municipal water and treatment systems across the U.S. are antiquated, and there's a lot of investment that is going into updating these water systems. Those costs are eventually distributed right across to the consumers. So that's one factor, right, that's causing rates to increase. But the other is increased water demand, right, and it's very simple supply demand economics around this demand issue. But today, every single state across the U.S., at least at a local to regional basis, is experiencing water scarcity, right? And that is when the demand for fresh water, right, is surpassing the supply, and where those water supplies can't be replenished, right, to keep up with the demand. And you can see the reasons for that in the population growth across the country, particularly in major metropolitan markets, and also the overall urbanization and development as well. So if a new plant goes in, or a new data center into a market, that is going to further increase the demand for water in those markets. And eventually, right, that is going to lead to higher costs for residents as well. So this is an issue that needs to be, prioritized. We feel, because it can be turned into a significant opportunity for value creation across these affordable communities if it is addressed. And our partners have proven that all of this waste, right, can be mitigated. It can be addressed. It can be managed, and the value in that can be leveraged into benefits across the life cycle of affordable communities and developments.
Awesome. Orlando, I want to dive into this just for a second longer here, but the what I think I hear you saying is the water rates are rising very fast, and it sounds like they have been for a while. And I'm guessing the folks on the phone here today, our customers, our partners, they have really no control over where the cost of water is going.
Yeah, correct. I mean, you don't have the ability to control what's happening with rates, right? So there's many markets. Caitlin's based in DC. They're currently seeing utility rates for water increase approximately 10% a year. Other markets, outside of Houston, are seeing rates as much as 80% over a few year period. So you can't control that, but you can control the amount of water that you're consuming at your properties. So, imagine an existing property that is, using 2-3 times more water than it should today. By being able to address and manage those leaks, right, in real time, having site teams that are able to, address those leaks before they hit the bottom line at the properties, turns that into an opportunity to generate, or recapture a significant amount of operating income at these properties, which, on average can be, $650 per unit per year in additional operating income.
I mean, that's a big number. I know I'm biased here, but I mean, if you can't control the rates, and then all of that waste is just becoming more and more expensive every year. So getting that consumption under control is so important. And not to steal the thunder from our panelists, but off the top, I mentioned this has been a secondary topic that's become a primary focus for these guys, and I think maybe you're giving a clue as to why here. So with that, why don't we bring them into the conversation? So I'm going to go to the next page here. Sean Beesman from Pivotal Housing Partners was kind enough to join us, as is Chris McKenzie from KeyBank. Sean, let me turn the microphone to you. Do you mind just giving a quick introduction of yourself and Pivotal Housing Partners?
Sure. Pivotal has been developing affordable housing for over 3 decades at this point. Formerly not Pivotal, but through Miller Valentine Group. So we have spun off within the last 8 or so years. So very experienced in affordable housing. We have approximately, I believe it's about 150 developments, just under 10,000 units under ownership and management. So I've been here for 25-ish years, mainly underwriting affordable transactions, dealing with our financial partners and housing agencies, nonprofit partners. So kind of have my hands around all that.
Fantastic. And just really briefly, where is Pivotal located today, and what markets do you focus on?
So we are headquartered in northern Cincinnati. From a market perspective, we have 5 regions, mainly everything east of the Mississippi, and then there's Texas as well. So I think we're in about 14 states currently, actively pursuing probably 10 to 12 right now.
Perfect. Perfect. I know Texas is one of those markets. Orlando mentioned that the rate of water is increasing at a rapid rate. I think something like almost 80% over a 5-year period. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, well, let's bring Chris into the conversation as well. Chris from KeyBank. I know one of our partners here on the platform. So, Chris, could you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Chris McKenzie with KeyBank. I sit on the fund investment side, so I'm at the upper tier. Looking down, kind of seeing what we could do there. But Orlando and I have had lots of conversations of how we can integrate this into other parts of the bank as well.
Awesome. Very cool. And I know you have a very unique perspective on water and the impact it's having on the portfolio. So looking forward to diving into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we get into the conversation, though, we do have a poll question for all of our attendees here. So, Caitlin, do you mind kicking that poll off, and we're going to see how much folks know about their water. So it should have hopefully popped up on everybody's screen, and we'll start seeing some answers here populate on the screen for everybody. But what is the typical water volume use per bedroom per day in affordable housing? So we'll take about a minute here for folks to answer the question and um, see the range of guesses across what is a really a wide gap here. I mean, 45 to 125 with a couple stops in between. That's a lot of water when you think of that's per bedroom per day. So on a 2-bedroom unit, you might double whatever your answer is per day, and then times 365 just to get to kind of what an annual volume would be. You get to very large numbers very quickly. I know Caitlin was commenting on some of the water puns at the beginning that we always have fun with, but the other thing that always surprises me when it comes to water is just the immensity of the numbers. Just the amount of gallons that we all use every day and or that are used in general. We often talk certainly in the millions and occasionally in the billions, and I've even seen places where we talk about the trillions of gallons of water that are used. So, all right, well, we'll give everybody another second here. It looks like we will close that poll out. Caitlin, I can't see the results. Oh, here they are. They just popped up. All right. So we've got about 2/3 are saying 105 gallons per bedroom per day is typical water use. Um, about 16% on either side of that are guessing a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And only 4% are taking that low number of 45. So Orlando, do you want to unveil the real answers here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, water waste is not isolated to affordable housing. But in multifamily in general and affordable housing as well, average consumption is in excess of 100 gallons per bedroom per day. So 105 is the correct answer for, and it looks like most of the folks did choose that. So that's right on the nose. So if when Ion conducts assessments of existing portfolios, 8 to 9 of those portfolios are going to be consuming water in excess of 100 gallons per bedroom per day. And when we talk about waste, right, and that 50% of that consumption is being wasted, that is actually represented across the aggregate performance of the affordable portfolios, right, and developers working with Ion. So our partners today are consuming less than 45 gallons per bedroom per day at scale. So a 60% reduction, right, compared to the industry average. And that's a lot of water saved, but it's also a lot of operating income that is being retained and repurposed today.
Awesome. Well, 65% of the people on the call got the answer right. So at 105 gallons per bedroom per day. 16% of the people that guessed 125, I think really we need to chat with because we have a solution for you. You're not only above the industry, but there must be a lot of water waste in there. And those of you who guessed the 45, I think maybe you're already on our platform and seeing that result. But when we talked earlier about consumption versus price, that consumption aspect is so important to manage now, especially in the rate environment. And you can kind of see those results here, where if the average is at 105 and the people on our platform are at 45, that's a huge strategy in how you manage your water and reduce that cost, especially in a rate rising environment like it is. Um, but you guys didn't dial in to the call today to listen to me. Let's bring it out to the panelists. So Sean, I'd love to start with you here. You mentioned a little bit about your organization and how you spread out across regions and the scale and breadth of operating 105 properties across the nation here. How did water end up becoming a strategic priority for you and for Pivotal?
I, I think it really, over the last 5 years, and for a lot of things that Orlando has mentioned, just with, the way that water expense is going up among our portfolio is just, it's astronomical. We're seeing probably 20 to 30% increases just in the last 5 years. And locations vary, of course, but I think it's really just the amount of money that the water bills are going up, and it's just become such a huge expense that it's garnered a lot of attention here.
All right. So, you mentioned it's been a lot of expense and it's garnering attention. Obviously that becomes something you want to manage. What are the results? I know I think you've done a few case studies, and I know you guys at Pivotal, being the analytical folks that you are, have dove into what the results are. Any kind of numerical aspects there, case study kind of outcomes that you can share with the group?
Yeah. So I did go back and I looked at one in particular. It's a 48 unit multifamily property, probably about 30 minutes south of Pittsburgh. Um, Water expense was astronomical. I think I looked at last year's audit. I think we were north of 150,000. So big numbers. Really impactful to NOI. So I think that property has been on ION for approximately a year. So I just went back and looked at, figures from January through what we just closed in September. And I annualized those numbers, and this property should see probably low six figures in savings just in the water line item, which is huge.
Wow.
So I mean that's over 2,000 per unit. It's probably closer to 2,500 per unit in actual real savings for that property.
I know as we all read the newspapers every day about just inflationary adjustments or cost of labor going up, tariffs, things of that nature. I can only imagine the type of impact that has on the bottom line to maybe help cover other costs or reinvest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's if you've got a property that's struggling, it can help get that property back to where it should be, or it can also, put additional cash in the pocket to help the property with other things that might be going on. So
Absolutely. Well, I know we all love talking about the results, and highlighting some of those things. I know you guys like seeing them too. But Orlando, do you mind just jumping in? I know you've worked quite a bit with Pivotal and the team there, and how do you get to those types of results, or what is it we're doing on our side? And can you give a little color on what that relationship looks like to help them at least get started and begin to achieve those types of results?
Yeah, well, I think it's it's a couple fold here. One, the decision was made at Pivotal, right, to actively, right, start managing and controlling their water expense. I think that Pivotal had some great feedback from some of their peers that were already working with ION to say, hey, this is a real impact, right, that is benefiting our organization as well. But today, or actually as of this month, I shared this information with Sean recently. the Pivotal portfolio is averaging 43 gallons per bedroom per day, right? So, and this is now across over 20, properties that are now on the platform. So over 34, actually over 2,300 total units,
Mhm.
which is amazing. And uh, they've really been able to drastically, reduce the consumption by more than 50% at a number of these developments. And we're thankful for this opportunity to continue to scale across the rest of Pivotal's portfolio. But we take a very active role in the partnership, right? So one thing to be clear on is Ion is not selling devices or widgets, right? This is not a sub meter that we are providing. There is a hardware component, right, at the properties where sensors are being installed to evaluate all water events, right, in the units, and determine, are these events associated with conscious consumption, right, or are they associated with unconscious consumption? That unconscious consumption is leaks, right? Our system is diagnosing, right, flagging those, diagnosing what's causing them, and then we're automating work orders for the site team, right, into the existing work order modules that our partners are using. But then there's very specific optics, dashboards, and reporting at the site level, at the asset management level, and at the executive level, so that um, not only can you identify, hey, we're addressing these leaks, but are we getting better across the portfolio on an ongoing basis? And that's the partnership, component, where we're actively meeting with the site teams, with the asset management teams, and really, giving kudos to say, hey, you're on the right path, but maybe the properties, or portions of the portfolio aren't quite optimized yet, right? It's still showing that there's leak volume there that is addressable, right? That can be acted on. So, regularly working with, and meeting with their site and asset management teams to continue to drive that performance. And then also, right, working, with Sean and the development team on underwriting initiatives and potential acquisition opportunities or recapitalizations to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to help support them so that they can leverage as much value out of this improved performance as possible.
I think that's why we call it end-to-end water management, right? So it's not just the technology capturing it, but it's where we go with that information and how we're partnering with them. But you mentioned something there, Orlando, about underwriting. So Sean, I wanted to bring you back into this. I know you mentioned that that's a key part of your role at Pivotal. It's certainly one thing to look at a building that's out there in the wild that has a water problem and say, hey, let's put ion technology in. But I think you've taken it to another step here and looked at it in your deal development side and how you're underwriting. Would you be able to share a little bit of that with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So I'm primarily on the development side. So looking for new business in various states we're in. And as part of that process on the front end, first of all, we're installing Ion in all new developments.
Mhm.
We're looking at retros as well, but primarily everything that's new development, we are utilizing Ion. And we are taking this and giving it to our financial partners. And it is taking a lot of the guesswork out of underwriting this expense. It's improving the NOI. It's helping debt leverage, which these days is pretty critical with where equity pricing has been. So that's been a huge help. And just, we have what, 20, I think Orlando said we have 2,400 units currently with Ion. That's giving our financial partners comfort that we've got, this vast number of units under Ion's management, so to speak. And, we're producing what, 43 gallons per bedroom. So, I mean, that's really helping on the underwriting side. So we're not really having to rely on, an appraiser's value or, the syndicator or investor's portfolio of values that, may not be that great.
That's awesome. And I can only imagine, you mentioned debt leverage, and I know everybody on the phone is, I'm sure, struggling in one way or another with the tightness of funds that exist in the marketplace today. So at 43 gallons per bedroom per day times the spiraling rates that are out there, I can only imagine the impact that has versus maybe your competition that's out there at 105 and trying to underwrite, a similar deal. I assume that's a pretty good advantage for you, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the size of the project, I mean, it's well into six figures of additional debt underwriting, but it probably a quarter million to a half million, depending on deal size, where you're able to leverage that much more debt based on just being able to underwrite this.
That's incredible in any environment, but I'm sure a big assist in the environment that we're in today, especially with where rates have been.
Yeah.
Speaking of rates, I know we have an expert from the bank side. So Chris, I'd love to bring you into the conversation if we can here. I know you've been working with us and really across affordable housing in a large way as to how water can have an impact. What sparked your interest initially, and can you just share a little bit about your journey here, working both with Ion, but really working with water in the affordable housing space?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's been kind of a long journey. My entire career has been based around sustainability. To me, it's been a no-brainer. I always believed in the merger of traditional capital with doing good, and sustainability is a great way to hit that triple bottom line. But continuously, through each of my various roles. So I started off at a CDFI, went over to an originator, and now I'm at the upper tier at a bank. You're hitting the proof of concept. You're hitting, barriers. How do you get the buy-in? And talking with Orlando, it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like the way that Ion system, the usable and actionable data, what I call is you have to define it and you have to defend it, with your credit folks, everybody else, and I think that's what separates it. And so it's like that's what got me excited, like yeah.
Well, anytime somebody can talk about sustainability and running good business and having impact at the same time, and I love the triple bottom line thought process. Chris, I'd love to let you just wax rhapsodic about Ion and how great Ion is all day, but my guess is folks want to hear from the key bank side, though. Maybe some insight on where is operational expenses going, and how do you connect the dots really operationally? Because I think some of what we talk about sometimes can feel like theory, but I've
Mhm.
seen Key Bank really put this in practice where what you guys are doing is saying here's where expenses are, and maybe here's an opportunity. So how do you really connect those dots on a deal? And is that something you're actually seeing happen today?
Yeah, it's been interesting as we're doing this dive, and Orlando and I are just seeing like where we could do this at the fund level, at the lower level, at the deal level, talking with different syndicators, and as you see the partners at the beginning of this, Key works with a bunch of them. So it's great to hear as we kind of talk to different lines of business, like they're already doing this, they're already working with Ion. We talked with somebody, not even realizing it was Ion's data. So we're doing on balance sheet, off balance sheet. Uh, but back to, and Sean talked to this in the underwriting, like, you're getting better debt service coverage ratios. So you could do larger loans. And then, running all the way up to Franny and Freddie. There's been some executions at that level as well and getting their buy-in. And back to utilizing this data and being out in the field and hearing various portfolios of syndicators. Yeah, OpEx, they're running away for various reasons. Staffing with maintenance, property management. I'm visiting a client up here in New England area, and HVAC just running wild. So they've had to dial that in, and so kind of what you guys talked to earlier about like what's controllable and this is a line item that is controllable and again, back to defendable.
I love that. I'm based in Florida, so you mentioned a lot of the levers. I mean, insurance is one I always hear down here as well, and just so many costs are going up, and similar to the price discussion that we had on rates and where rates are going. It's to some degree out of people's control when those changes are happening, and maybe you didn't underwrite to those, or if what Sean was talking about, you're doing an underwriting now, you need some relief, and um, it sounds like there's been some success within KeyBank on how you utilize Ion and the NOI here to find some of that impact. Am I capturing that right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have, and what I would like to kind of see the change though is like, yes, in like some specific use cases it's been done. But I would love to see a broader adoption and acceptance of it. I wanted to, where we're pushing to make it more commonplace versus a one-off. And right now it kind of is more of a one-off, and like, getting people comfortable with it and whatnot. And so, it just, uh, right now you have to discount to make various people comfortable with what is right. We're not integrating the full savings. You're not integrating the full impact that can be achieved. And so that's something, I think that's the narrative, and that's what we could push. But again, the adoption, or you see it coming through, and it's been pleasantly surprising, the different lines already utilizing it, and how we're touching it. There's syndicated partners and various developers like Sean, just really running through their whole portfolio with this.
Yeah, and I always hear people talk about the change in utility rates, and the focus is always electricity
Yeah.
or natural gas or something of that nature. And I sense this general assumption that the cost of water is whatever it is because you can't control it, and it's water's ubiquitous, and that's really changed. I think over the last three years. I think you've highlighted that for me in some of our conversations too, Chris. But maybe when you look at utilities overall. How does KeyBank evaluate utility performance, in a deal, maybe over, forecasting that over 10 or 15 years, just in general, how do you guys look at that today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I get that goes back to taking that discount or haircut. It's all about comp data, right? Right. And so it's, if you don't have the comps to support it, traditionally what we're looking at, and so that's how you're doing projections based off other projects of similar size in the same demographic. So we only are able to be as useful as the data that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's I love Sean's point earlier about once you get such a established base on the platform, you really get internal comp data that you can utilize there. So it sounds like that's working for Sean. So Um, I can ask you guys questions all day. I always love seeing you guys and talking through, and it's always fun being with partners. But would love to hear what's on the mind of the audience here, and if there's questions out there from the audience, and I'm sure they probably ask better questions than I do anyway. Caitlin, I don't know if we can maybe bring you back into the discussion here and help us moderate some of the questions and maybe some instructions here. So it looks like you're saying hit the Q&A button on the bottom.
Hit the Q&A button. We've got a couple in the chat, so I can pull those up
Okay.
now. So two I'm going to combine. Do you have monitoring for non-unit leaks, such as sprinkler systems in hallways or irrigation lines?
Yeah, great question. Those are some that we get often, questions about non-unit monitoring. So we do monitor common areas today in the Ion system. So not only are you seeing what's happening in the units, but you're seeing, say, common area toilets and common area bathrooms and so forth. We're capturing all of that. And by doing so, we're not monitoring today irrigation or say pools and stuff of that nature, but we're able to triangulate everything from your water bill that's going into a unit or a common area. So we can't specifically today say, hey, there's a leak in your irrigation system. But what we can do is say we've ruled out everything else, so it must be your irrigation system, and highlight to you the need to bring in expertise around one area or another at that point. And generally speaking, we can point to where the problems are, and then we would suggest where to get the right professionals involved for that specific item that's outside of the unit. Uh, as we build out partnerships in our ecosystem, stay tuned because I think we will have some solutions for you in those areas here as we go forward too, as we really aim to not only be end-to-end water management, like we said, but total visibility for your property and really being able to understand where every single drop is going. So, but today that's not a solution for us, but we are, pointing to where there is an issue that you should be investigating.
We'll give folks a moment to put their questions in the boxes,
Sounds
but
good.
Chris, I've got one for you. You know, one of the challenges with water is that it's an everyday management problem, that this water keeps coming. It's not quite like an LED light bulb where you plug it in and then it's solved. You've reduced your energy consumption, that this requires active management on the part of your development and management partners. So when you're thinking about underwriting and that, active role that the developer and Ion are playing together, how do you think about underwriting that management going forward?
No, that's a great question. Uh, you know, kind of getting comfortable with more on Ion side in the system and seeing that landing page of how this spits out the report for the maintenance to respond quickly and efficiently to the top three, right? Orlando's the top three of each day. 4, 5. There we go. Yeah. So
Went up.
keep going. Yeah. So, and so that gets us comfortable with that in of itself, but also right, and making sure then that those property managers are also familiar with it, right? And that the training there and the knowledge and onboarding, all those kind of align together.
Yeah, and to that point, Caitlin, we provide an engineered target based on our comp data, right? So we're just about to eclipse 100,000 affordable units on the platform, on the Ion platform today. And that is growing at a rapid pace, right? We're working with over a third of the AHF, top 50 affordable developers today. And our comp data continues to get stronger and stronger, right? And one of those reasons is that the portfolios that are coming on board, the longer properties and portfolios are on the Ion platform. The data supports that their gallon per bedroom per day continues to get better as well, right? So this is a cultural shift, right, as well around how water is being accounted for and managed on an ongoing basis. So we're very thankful, for KeyBank and some of the other investors and lenders in the market that have taken interest in this, because they know it is an impact to to their investments, right? And if there's an opportunity to mitigate waste in a specific area, then that can potentially turn into a lifeline for some of these communities as well. I mean, you think about the life cycle, right? These stabilized properties, yes, you want to maximize savings related to water, over that initial 15 years, right? But now there are deals that are in, year in 8, 16, 17 that are approaching debt maturity, right? And their debt coverage might be okay today for that initial right underwriting and perm debt structure, but now they have to recapitalize, and a lot of these deals don't have the net operating income, right, to justify this recap, without some kind of equity infusion or potential workout. And we're not saying that 100% of the time water performance can be, the answer, but a majority of the time it can be, right? It can potentially, generate enough net operating, uplift for these properties to, stabilize that debt coverage or enable that recapitalization. So we're thankful for the partnership and the opportunity to work with KeyBank, but we want we want the investors and the lenders in the market to be able to utilize this lifeline as well, right? So and we're really trying to bridge that gap from underwriting to asset management, right? So that there's optics around more than just trailing 12 expense, right? It's how is this property actually performing, right? When it comes to water performance, is it if there was a increase in monthly expenses or quarterly expenses during a financial review to water, what was that related to? Right? Was it was and is the property performing well? Is there something that we can address concerning water? And we provide that blueprint, right? Like the site is doing very well, or maybe it isn't. Maybe they've run into a bandwidth issue. They've had turnover at the site, and they haven't had the site resources to address leaks there. Now you can quantify, like, how much is this waste costing us at the property, right? And let's not wait until we hire a new site tech or property manager. Let's get a crew from another property over to the site, or bring in a local plumbing group to stabilize the water performance, because it's not like every single unit is leaking. It's literally, it can be less than 10% of the units that are actively leaking at a property that are wasting enough water to double the consumption at a property. So at any time, you have the optics and
I think that
information.
comment alone. Yeah, I think that comment alone is just worth just repeating real quick is 10% or less of the units could be leaking. That is enough to double the water usage and consumption at a property. That's how much you need to make sure that you're focusing on your fixtures and that are in disrepair and proactively fixing them. So very, very big insight there, Orlando. So
We've got a question
Caitlin,
here
I think
in
we see a
chat.
question here.
Yeah, I just before we move on to that, I wanted to bring Sean into this conversation. And, there's a lot going on at a site, and the site team is responsible for so much, including a unit turn and getting that unit leased up. How do you incentivize your staff to make sure that they stay focused on this?
Yeah, I mean that's been a big part of this, because the technology that this provides, it allows us to kind of like what Orlando and Eric just mentioned. I mean, if you've got 10% of the units that have problems, then at a big property, that's a lot of units. And trying to figure out where the problem is, good luck. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is it has helped free up maintenance techs in the service techs to do other things at the property that, called opportunity costs, but they're able to deal with other things at the property that, are worth their time, not going around figuring out where,
Goose chase.
Yes, exactly. That term was used here. So yeah, going and looking around for 10 to 20 units that you might have a leak at, and that's just tough. It's very tough.
I'm really glad you said it that way, because that's a question we get often is, hey, you're going to highlight all these leaks and now I need maintenance staff to go fix it. The alternative is you get a bill at the end of the month and you have a leak, but you don't know where it is. I think it was very eloquent the way you put it, is it creates efficiency for your staff.
And at that point, it's
because
too
I guess
late.
you have one of two things. Yeah.
You get that bill. You get the bill at the end of the month, and it's too late. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go to this next question. Do you find that withdrawals are allowed from replacement reserves to pay for physical improvements to reduce leaks?
Fantastic question, and this is another one that we often get. So we have two different pricing models for what it is that when we come into the market with our partners. If somebody is willing to prepay and look at this as a capital expense in terms of putting the water management system in place, we have approval that this is a depreciable expense in affordable housing, which means on a new construction or a resyndication that it does qualify for eligible basis. Or in an operating property scenario, if you would like to look at it from that aspect, that means since it's depreciable, it does qualify for withdrawal from replacement reserves. So now we always recommend working with your tax advisor for your specific area on that. And then obviously, if you're touching replacement reserves, obviously working with your lenders in equity. But we have seen many successful cases of that because of the treatment as to how it qualifies. And certainly, if anybody's interested, they can get in touch and we can provide you the technical details behind that. The second model we have though is a monthly option. So if somebody does not have the capital to make a investment in like this to put the system in place and to do something as a capital project, instead we can do this on a financed option where somebody just pays a monthly fee. In that case, it obviously goes through OpEx, and generally speaking, we see a payback on those monthly payments within the first 60 days. So that's also an attractive option for properties that are in that situation. So, but we can get in touch and talk about either model.
Yeah, and I think I saw that question pop up as well, and I think that Sean did a great job of addressing this. Um, you know, the active leaks that need to be addressed. This is all deferred maintenance items at the property, right? These are leaking, fixtures and disrepair that eventually are going to be addressed. We're just providing optics to say this needs to be addressed now because it's costing you this much every day, week, month that it goes on, not being addressed. And you can, our developers, right, can literally quantify how much that waste is costing them. So most of the fixes, right, that are necessary, are not costly fixes, right? It's adjusting a toilet, right, or a water heater inside of the unit. It's just having the optics and actionable data to do that quickly and efficiently, right, without going on a wild goose chase to figure out where that is. So typically, to make the actual repairs, there isn't a need, right, to access reserves or something to make those repairs in the vast majority of the circumstances. So I hope
We gotta change. Go ahead.
no, good.
I was just gonna say, I think we gotta change from wild goose chase and bring back a water pun, and maybe we can go on a fishing expedition.
Oh, there we go.
Yes,
Caitlin, you were
yes.
very good at these the water puns.
I did
Yeah.
have a question. We were talking about new construction and that, there's a way to finance it. I think one of the biggest eye-opening moments for me was the realization that new construction leaks just as much as anything else. And maybe Orlando or Eric, you could talk about what the data has shown there.
Yeah, no, that's a great
Absolutely.
point. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, I'll take it in Orlando. Feel free to add if I missed anything here, but certainly on new construction, it's an eye-popping number. It's 100% of all buildings leak on day one, which I know that as you mentioned, Caitlin, I know that surprised you when we talked about it. It's honestly surprised me at first, but when you step back and think about it, it makes sense. You have a 100-unit building, maybe you have 150 bathrooms, there's 150 toilets, 150 shower heads, maybe 1,700 fixtures across that property. And, over the course of, you're on a construction site, over the course of that construction site, things from the manufacturer may have come in damaged. Maybe they got damaged in transportation. Maybe something got over tightened when it was installed, or throughout storage. Sometimes these projects go on for a while, and some of these fixtures sit in storage. Sometimes maybe in hot environments or humid environments, and seals crack and things like that. So what we found is really on day one, every single property we've ever installed in leaks, sometimes tremendously leaking, to the tune of millions of dollars that are lost before occupancy even happens, which is just an incredible waste and something that can be prevented. Um, some of our partners are now actually utilizing this in terms of their warranty coverage, or before their GC leaves, making sure they turn down the data, checked it, and make sure that things are fixed, and that any warranty holds they have from their manufacturers are in place and replaced before they ever leave the site, to prevent that. But tremendous stat that is unbelievable at first, but makes sense when you really think about it. 100% of all new construction leaks.
And I think this really goes to kind of one of the myths, right, in the industry, or misconceptions, I guess. A lot of developers, right, today, and makes sense, right? But they believe, hey, we're already tackling water. We're putting in low flow fixtures and toilets, shower heads, aerators. What else is needed, right? And it's the fact that our founder and CEO has coined this term, or not coined it, but it's true. But water is the universal solvent, right? It is constantly degrading every fixture and fitting and gasket in a property. And it's eventually these fixtures are going to start to leak. So putting in low flow, and efficient fixtures, it's a great idea, right? And it does help when those fixtures are not in disrepair. But it does nothing to mitigate waste, right? When they do fall into disrepair. So it's on retrofit measures and things of that nature, or at properties or rehabs. You can't wave that magic wand of just putting in new fixtures and think that you have the problem addressed.
Well, I think that's a really great note to end on. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I want to give folks just a little bit more information on how you can get in touch. Anything you guys want to say to close out or touch on this white paper you've got listed up here?
Linda, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so there's obviously a link to our website here. Also, white paper that was developed with feedback from capital market partners, including KeyBank, and industry partners, including NHNRA. Really, trying to summarize the state of water, right, in affordable housing in the industry as a whole, and how that can really impact investment and lending as well when you have true optics to water performance. So would love for you guys to download that, and follow up with any questions that you may have.
Sounds good. Orlando, thank you for the comments there and just the state of water as we've gone through this. Sean, I want to personally thank you for joining. We just absolutely cherish our relationship with Pivotal, and we're thrilled that you were able to hop on here, share some of the insights. I know the impact you guys are having is just incredible, and it's fun to watch what's happening within your portfolio, and fun to say we're taking a little bit of help in that journey with you guys. So and then Chris, it's just been outstanding getting to know you here, and the evolving relationship that we're having with KeyBank. And thank you also for taking the time out of what I know is a busy schedule. Chris is actually at one of his customers today, stealing a conference room to join us. So always on the road and traveling, and still jumping in to support this. So thank you so much for all you do for Ion, and really the journey here on, as you mentioned, sustainability and impact, and how the crossroads of those all come together for the industry.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'll just add to my thanks to Ion and to everyone else on the team. This has been such a really wonderful partnership, and it's been fun to see your journey. I hope the 100,000 unit celebration is going to be a big one. I hope there's lots of water, maybe like a water slide involved. That'd be fun. Let me know. I want pictures. But it's really been such a pleasure to watch you guys grow and to see all of our partners start adopting more of this and really start solving this problem. I think as big of a challenge it is, it also presents a lot of opportunities, and really the entire life cycle of deals and the innovation that has happened around the financing. So thank you to the work you do. And I just wanted to quickly highlight before we close out each of our upcoming events. We're going to be in Boston next week for our Fall Developers Forum. And then we've got our annual meeting registration open. That's going to be right after President's Day in February. We are expecting that one to sell out. So I would encourage people to register sooner rather than later, especially as we get into our room block. But thank you all for your time today, and hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin.
Yes. Bye.
Bye all.
Thanks, everyone.
See you in Boston, Caitlin.
See ya.